When I walked into the bursar's office with my Columbia Law acceptance letter, the clerk looked at me with pity. "The account balance is zero, Mr. Vance. It was liquidated yesterday." That was $92,000. My late grandfather's trust fund, carefully managed for my legal career. My parents hadn't just emptied the account. They handed every single cent to my younger sister, Chloe, to fund her luxury lifestyle influencer brand. They told me to be the supportive older brother. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked out, cut them off completely, and vanished for 8 long years. I drove straight to my parents' house, finding them celebrating around the dining table with expensive champagne. Chloe was showing off sketches for her new boutique. When I demanded an explanation about my drained $92,000 fund, my mother didn't even flinch. She smiled coldly and said, "Chloe needs momentum right now. You're the smart one, Julian. You can just take out student loans. Be a supportive brother." My father silently slid a legal liability waiver toward me. I looked at their smug faces, refused to sign, and packed my bags. That night, I erased them from my life completely. The next 4 years were a blur of cheap black coffee, fluorescent library lights, and bone-crushing exhaustion. To survive Columbia Law without my grandfather's fund, I took out $95,000 in high-interest private student loans. I worked 30 hours a week as a nighttime legal proofreader, surviving on instant noodles and 4 hours of sleep in a windowless basement studio. While my classmates went on ski trips and networked over expensive dinners, I lived in the library basement, mastering corporate law, forensic accounting, and bankruptcy restructuring. I graduated in the top 5% of my class and secured a grueling junior associate position at Sterling and Vance, one of the most ruthless distressed asset and insolvency litigation firms in Chicago. I didn't care about the 80-hour workweeks. I threw myself into the grind, hunting down hidden offshore accounts, dissecting corporate balance sheets, and acquiring distressed debt portfolios. By year 6, I made non-equity partner. I bought a clean, modern condo overlooking the Chicago skyline and paid off every single cent of my student debt. My phone occasionally flashed with blocked voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize, but I never listened to a single one. I had buried my past. My entire life was built on strict discipline, hard evidence, and absolute control. Little did I know, while I was clawing my way to the top of the legal food chain, my family was quietly digging their own financial grave. Without my steady oversight and practical discipline, my family's house of cards collapsed with predictable speed. Chloe's luxury lifestyle brand turned out to be an endless black hole of vanity and delusion. She blew through my entire $92,000 in less than 14 months. Instead of securing inventory or supply chains, she spent the cash on first-class flights to Dubai, rented sports cars for photo shoots, and paid self-proclaimed marketing gurus thousands for worthless promo videos. When that money vanished, my parents didn't hold her accountable. They doubled down on their golden child. Convinced Chloe was just one viral post away from building a multi-million-dollar empire, my father took out a $200,000 home equity loan against their suburban house. My mother emptied her retirement 401k, paying massive early withdrawal penalties just to settle Chloe's unpaid vendor invoices and keep the boutique's luxury storefront open. None of it worked. Chloe had no real business sense, no work ethic, and zero financial control. By year 7, the boutique had quietly closed its doors under a mountain of debt. High-interest commercial lenders were circling, private creditors were filing default lawsuits, and the bank was preparing foreclosure proceedings on my parents' home. They were drowning in nearly $400,000 of combined high-interest liabilities, with ruined credit and nowhere left to turn. The same parents who told me to figure things out on my own were now standing at the edge of complete, irreversible financial ruin. In the spring of my 8th year away, my firm took on a massive distressed asset portfolio from a failing regional lender. As a senior partner specializing in debt restructuring, the lead file landed squarely on my mahogany desk. It contained over 200 bundled default judgments, delinquent commercial lines, and non-performing residential mortgages up for immediate private liquidation. I opened the primary debtor annex, sipping my espresso, and froze. Staring back at me were 3 names I had spent 8 years trying to forget: Arthur Vance, Evelyn Vance, and Chloe Vance. Attached to the dossier was the deed to my childhood home in Oak Park, subject to a $340,000 foreclosure notice, alongside an $85,000 personal judgment against Chloe's defunct LLC. The bank had scheduled an immediate sheriff's auction to recover pennies on the dollar. My heart didn't race. A cold, clinical calm washed over me instead. I didn't pass the file off to a junior associate. Under state law, private debt packages could be sold to independent holding entities before public auction. That very afternoon, I established an anonymous corporate vehicle, Apex Capital Holdings LLC, drafted the transfer paperwork, and wired $425,000 of my personal investment capital to purchase the entire debt package outright. I was no longer just the son they abandoned. I was now their sole lien holder, their exclusive creditor, and the legal owner of their primary mortgage note. The next morning, I instructed our firm's process server to execute formal 90-day demand notices and an immediate pre-foreclosure summons directly to the front porch of my childhood home. The legal paperwork bore only the holding firm's official letterhead and a summons to appear at my downtown office for a final settlement conference. The trap was set. The glass double doors of my 42nd floor corner office opened at precisely 2 o'clock. My assistant escorted 3 visibly shaken people inside. They had aged terribly. My father looked hollow and stooped, wearing a 10-year-old off-the-rack suit that hung loosely on his shrinking frame. My mother clung nervously to a knockoff designer handbag, her eyes darting across the Italian marble floor and floor-to-ceiling windows. Chloe trailed behind them, dressed in cheap fast fashion, her old influencer arrogance replaced by raw, frantic desperation. I sat back in my high-back leather chair, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across my polished desk. I didn't say a word. I simply waited. "Excuse me, Mr. Vance," my father began, his voice trembling as he stepped forward, clutching the formal summons letter. "We're here for the emergency settlement conference with Apex Capital. We desperately need a payment extension. If the foreclosure proceeds, we will be completely homeless by the end of this month." I turned my chair slowly to face them. My mother gasped, dropping her purse. The contents spilled across the rug, but she didn't even look down. Her face drained of all color. "Julian?" she whispered, her hands flying to her mouth in utter disbelief. "Hello, Evelyn." "Hello, Arthur," I said, keeping my tone perfectly measured and polite. "Take a seat." Chloe froze near the doorway, staring at my nameplate, Julian Vance, Senior Managing Partner, before stammering, You own Apex Capital? You bought our debt." "I own the mortgage on your home, Chloe," I answered smoothly, opening a thick leather binder. "Along with your defaulted commercial notes. Every single cent of your family's financial future is sitting right here on my desk." My mother broke into hysterics, rushing forward to place her hands on my desk. "Julian, thank God it's you. We're saved. You have to dismiss these default notices immediately. We're your family. We made mistakes, but blood is thicker than water." "Sit down, Evelyn," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a razor. She shrank back into an armchair. My father sat beside her, staring at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. I opened the black leather folder and slid 3 documents across the polished wood. The first was the certified bank record from 8 years ago, highlighting the $92,000 withdrawal that drained my law school fund. Beside it, I placed an itemized forensic breakdown of Chloe's credit expenses, showing thousands wasted on luxury resort cabanas, designer shoes, and VIP bottle service, while I worked night shifts in a moldy basement. The third document was the immediate writ of foreclosure, signed and ready for the county sheriff. "You took my future 8 years ago without a second thought," I stated calmly. "You told me to figure it out on my own. Today, I am giving you the exact same professional courtesy." Chloe started sobbing loudly. "Julian, please. I was young. I didn't know any better. If you execute this foreclosure, we lose everything. Where will we go?" "You won't be homeless today, Chloe," I replied, sliding a final, legally binding debt restructuring agreement in front of him. "Under 2 non-negotiable conditions. First, Arthur and Evelyn will sign over the deed to Apex Capital. You may live there as tenants paying fair market rent. Second, Chloe, you will surrender your luxury vehicle, get an actual full-time job, and make monthly court-monitored payments until every cent of the principal is paid back. Sign, or the sheriff arrives tomorrow. With shaking hands and tear-streaked faces, all three of them picked up the pen and signed every single page. The illusion of family privilege was officially dead. From this day forward, they were merely delinquent tenants and debtor clients bound to Apex Capital by binding legal contracts. When they tried to linger, my mother reaching out to touch my hand, my father quietly murmuring apologies, I didn't offer a comforting smile or words of forgiveness. I buzzed my assistant, had them escorted to the lobby, and told them that all future correspondence would be handled strictly through our automated tenant portal. 2 years have passed since that afternoon. Chloe works a standard 9-to-5 desk job, her wages automatically garnished each month. My parents pay their monthly rent on time, living quietly in the house they once owned, knowing that one missed payment triggers an immediate legal eviction. I stand on the balcony of my Chicago condo, holding a cup of black coffee, watching the morning sun reflect off Lake Michigan. They thought taking my grandfather's money would break me. Instead, it forced me to build an empire they